we are going to talk about finding the end time when the start time and the elapsed time are given. So the first thing we need to do is obviously read our problem. Paul's father spent 55 minutes working on his truck. If he started working on it at 6:55 p.m., what time was it when he finished? So the first thing I need to do is I need to put down my start time, my end time, and my elapsed time. So I know end time is what I want to find here. And it says he spent 55 minutes working on his truck. This is going to be the elapsed time, 55 minutes. That's how much time has passed. Now, one thing we need to remember is that we can't mark an elapsed time down on our clock. And then we see it says if he started working on it at 6:55 p.m. So that's what time he started working, was 6:55 p.m. And it says what time did he finish? So we're being asked to figure out the end time. So with any of these problems, we're always going to use what we know to figure out what we don't know. We know the start time, we know the elapsed time, and we're going to use that to figure out the end time. So I'm going to first make my clock. Nice and neat. Put in my corners, 12, 3, 6, 9. Put in my middles, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. So to do this, I'm going to mark down my start time minutes. So I'm going to put my start time minutes is 55, so I'm going to mark that down on the 11. To get that, I just count my 5s, starting at a 12 because the 12's 0. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So my start time is 55. Now, I travel 55 minutes. That's the elapsed time. So what I need to do is I need to add my elapsed time onto my start time. So I add this 55 minutes on to my start time minutes. So I'll do that. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55. So right there is my end time. So I went from there, added 55 minutes on to get to the end time. Now there's one last step that I want to do. I want to go back to my start time, which is 6:55, and I want to count all the way to my end time. So what I'm doing now is I'm figuring out what my end time is. So 6:55, 7 o'clock, 7:05, 7:10, 7:15, 7:20, 7:25, 7:30, 7:35, 7:40, 7:45, 7:50. So right there, my end time is 7:50. And it is PM. PM, we'll say it stands for past morning. Anytime noon or later is going to be PM. AM is the opposite one. AM, we'll say, stands for at morning. So from midnight all the way to noon, all the way up to 11:59, is the AM. So that's the morning. And then once noon hits, then we're at PM, and PM lasts all the way up until midnight. So we didn't cross a noon or a midnight, so our AM, PM will stay the same. So our answer there is 7:50 p.m. Once again, we want to make sure we add our elapsed time onto our start time. And another example, this one here. Now this one's going to be a little bit more difficult. Dave started jogging at 11:37. If he jogged for 44 minutes, what time was it when he finished? So I'm going to be doing the same types of things. I'm going to write down my start time, end time, and elapsed time. And for the start time, it says he started jogging at 11:37 a.m. and it says he jogged for 44 minutes. So that is the elapsed time. So that's how long he jogged for. Once again, we can't mark the elapsed time down on our clock at one specific point. It's an amount of time that has traveled. So we make our clock, put in our corners. Now the nicer and neater you make your clock, the easier of a time you're going to have solving the problem. So you don't have to worry about things being a mess. So once again, I'm going to add my elapsed time on to my start time. So I mark down my start time minutes first. Sorry, yes, I marked down my start time minutes first. So 37. So that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So it's going to be between 35 and 40. I make my 4 tallies right there. And 35, 36, 37. So right there is my start time minutes. So now I need to add 44 minutes on to the start time minutes. So I'm going to start at my start and I'm going to go clockwise because I'm adding it on for 44 minutes. I'm going to travel 44 minutes around the clock. So when I'm in between my 2 big tallies here, I count by 1 minute. So I start on the start, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So right there I traveled 3 minutes. So I need to travel a total of 44. And we subtract that, 44 minus 3 is 41. So I need to travel 41 more minutes because I already traveled 3. So now we count by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and I'm going to stop there because if I go one more, that's going to be 45 minutes, and I only needed to go 41. So I went 40 minutes, and then I'm going to go one more to right there, and that's going to be my end time. Then I go back, and I count from my start time to where I ended up. So I traveled those 44 minutes clockwise around my clock to get to my end time. So then it goes from 11:37, 11:38, 11:39, 11:40, 11:45, 11:50, 11:55, noon, 12:05, 12:10, 12:15, 12:20, and 12:21. So I end up right at 12:21. Now the question here is that AM or PM? As we mentioned before, AM is at morning. So AM goes all the way up until noon. PM is past morning. PM goes all the way up to midnight. So if I ever cross a noon or a midnight, I'm going to change AMs and PMs. So since I went from the AM, crossed noon, and that means I'm moving on into PM. So my answer here for end time is 12:21 PM. Once again, get your data, mark your start time minutes, and then add your elapsed time minutes on to your start time minutes. That means you're going to travel clockwise around the clock that many minutes.